Hello, everybody. This is Jack, and this video is a tribute to the humanitarians in the world. Today is World Humanitarian Day, in case you didn't know, and I just wanted to do a little something to remember that. So if you're here live, thanks for being here. If you're watching this after the event, thank you also. Feel free to leave me a comment, like the video, let me know that you're here. Let me know if you have your own experience of being a humanitarian or supporting someone in your life who is. So the reason that this is World Humanitarian Day is actually itself slightly tragic, well, a lot tragic. On the 19th of August in 2003, the then United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Sergio Vieira de Mello, was part of a number of people who were killed in a hotel bombing in Iraq when they were there, trying to set up their peacekeeping mission. So this day has been honored, I think, since 2006 to honor his work and other people who work as humanitarians, not just for the United Nations, but in all forms. So I just was going to share I don't know a huge amount about Sergio's life. I do know that there is a good documentary film that I've seen on Netflix. Check that out if you haven't. It's called Sergio. It's the 2009 documentary film. There's another film on Netflix called Sergio in 2020, which is something a little bit different. I'm just going to see if I can share my screen with you here and just bring this up. If you're watching this live, let me know if that is actually sharing. So this is Sergio Vieira de Mello. He was actually touted to be a future possible head of the United Nations, and he was very reluctant to take this role, which actually ultimately cost him his life. So kind of doing a little bit of honoring of him today. Also today, we have just had the sentencing of who they call the ISIS Beatles. These are a couple of ex-Britons who were involved in attacking and killing, murdering US journalists and a couple of aid workers. And because their sentencing was just outside DC, I actually went down there earlier just to listen to the parents. And so James Foley was one of the American journalists who was killed by ISIS publicly. And this is his mum. Let me just get my screen sharing right here so I can share a different screen. Testing my tech skills here. So James Foley's mother, Diane Foley, set up the James Foley Legacy Foundation to continue on his work. And yeah, she spoke movingly about his life and contribution. She also, I think, incredibly bravely met with the guy, or one of the two guys who killed her son, and forgave him, which is remarkable, really. So I just wanted to play something that is a tribute to James Foley's life. I don't actually know a huge amount about his life other than that's been kind of part of the mainstream, like media, BBC coverage. So I'm going to see if I can share this video here. Let's see if this works.
James Foley joins us now live from inside northern Syria.
Yes, thank you.
There's snipers in this building about 1 kilometer.
At the beginning, we were under spell of the front lines.
There were a number of journalists, and it said, this is way too dangerous.
Shit!
That day, something was really wrong.
Who was killed?
They warned journalists, Al-Qaeda's coming, maybe even worse than Al-Qaeda's coming. These 4 guys with guns, they stopped the taxi and they put Jim into the back of their van.
Wow.
For the next 3 weeks, there was just dead ends.
That first email came to me.
We have James
I want to negotiate for him and want money fast.
As a hostage, we were so scared. We lost all hope. You never know what's going to happen next. And that's much more difficult to deal with than the beginning.
FBI seemed to have their hands tied.
Realized that nothing was being done.
Rumors and people being scared of talking.
It's the event with the second most recognition in recent American history after 9/11.
There are 15 European hostages who are alive. I wish we'd negotiated. I wish we'd started sooner.
This is Jim Foley reporting from downtown Benghazi, over Syria Square.
So the James Foley Foundation actually works to do at least a couple of things. One is to train the next generation of journalists how to be more safe in their global travels, particularly when they're going to failed states and war-torn areas of high risk. And the second thing that they're doing is trying to put more pressure on national governments to protect their citizens overseas and to do more to try and bring them home if they are in a hostage situation. Because as you probably know, the main line of most Western governments is that we don't negotiate with terrorists. I don't know the ins and outs of all the protocols involved there. What I do know is that most of these families who have had family members held hostage overseas, and by the way, currently I think there's at least 67 journalists or humanitarian workers from the US alone who are currently detained or held in hostage situations where they are certainly not getting a free and fair trial if they've even been charged of anything. These families wanted more from their government, and they were, calling the State Department and saying they were barely getting a call back. So I just wanted to, I have a lot of compassion for the experience. I don't have a lot of life experience that is, exactly in this territory. I can't imagine what that would be like to have someone taken overseas and feel like no one can really help you. And speed of help in these situations tends to be important and decisive. And I'm really happy that they're trying to continue his legacy. I mean, where this intersects for me, one of the things I do pretty much every day, often more than once a day, is that I go to the BBC website and I look at the global news. And I probably don't spend enough time just sitting with, well, how does that news get there, right? Because the news that's coming from places that don't have security in the way that we might experience it, most of us, most of the time, in the West, certainly at least, is as a lot of people on the ground taking a lot of risks to cover these stories, to look at human rights abuses, to then be the victims themselves of human rights abuses. One of the reasons why I personally have been in favor of us having some kind of globally enforceable Bill of Rights, so that wherever you are in the world, whoever you are, whatever gender or ethnicity or sexual orientation or otherwise, that your rights are protected. The notion that you can be smuggled across a national border and suddenly find it's really hard to enforce your rights, that seems outdated to me and something that we need to change. I also heard earlier from the parents of Kayla Muller, who was one of the other children to her parents, but she was I think she was in 25 when she was also taken hostage, and ultimately also sadly would never return home. She was an aid worker. So I just, I don't have a big grand schedule for this live stream. I just wanted to acknowledge the people out there that do this kind of work, that put their heart and souls into helping less fortunate people, privileged people, and that take a high degree of risk themselves in doing this kind of work, and don't necessarily get the help that they need kind of in their hour of need. And maybe there's something that we can all campaign for. The US government has looked at this. They did under Obama start to change some of their protocol in relation to hostage situations. My understanding is that that was seen as a kind of a positive move in the right direction, and that there's plenty more that can be done. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. Happy Friday on World Humanitarian Day. Maybe you can take a moment and just consider those that right now are not enjoying the freedoms that most of us would come to expect in the 21st century. Check out the Sergio documentary film if you haven't. It's sad for sure. It's tragic, but it's also, I think, a good use of time and attention. And as always, I'm Jack. Thanks for being here.